Hey family, look, welcome back to Grace House Church YouTube channel. We're so thankful for every person that has been joining us on this journey, for those who have liked, commented, and subscribed to the YouTube channel. We're super thankful for that. If you are brand new to the YouTube channel, welcome. Pray that you are encouraged through the content that we're going to be releasing here. Our goal is to share content as relates to just really life in general, faith. So hoping that it builds your faith, your hope in God. And no matter what you're going through in your life, pray that you can get something out of this, something you could take away and say, man, I really needed to hear that. That encouraged me. That gave me a little extra push to make it through your journey. We've been covering this health crisis that I've gone through over the last couple of months, that landed me in intensive care for over 48 days. I was on a ventilator. I was on this machine called ECMO, which was like the last chance of like survival, where doctors were fighting to keep me alive. If you haven't heard that testimony in full and you're new to the channel, I want to encourage you to go back and watch that. We'll put the link in the description section below so you can hear that, and hopefully it encourage you. Maybe if you find someone that's going through a health crisis or any type of crisis that needs some hope, you can share it and send it to them. I am here. We're having a couch conversation today with my amazing wife, who has been on this journey right by my side literally since day one. I got sick June the 5th, and things took a turn for the worse. You know, just being honest, it took a turn for the worse. But she's been here with me every step of the way, and everything that I'm doing now and able to do, of course, is through the help of God, but with the help of this young lady sitting next to me. So we've had to make some major life changes, and I want us to be able to walk the people through some of those changes that we've had to make. But I want to first start with asking you this question, because at the front end of this health crisis, you know, I was really out of it. It was like the way I described it is more like a blackout moment, where I wasn't here presently. I couldn't speak, couldn't talk. I was hooked up to a lot of different stuff. They were fighting to keep me alive, heartbeat, all this stuff. So my question to you is, you in that moment had to make a lot of serious decisions for me, because normally the doctor's is asking the patient questions, but of course I wasn't able to do that. So can you walk us through that? What was that like for you? Like having to make some tough decisions, and share, of course, a couple of tough decisions that you had to make during that time.
Yeah, I think the very first one was the ventilator, and my goal was, well, whatever the decision is going to be what gives you the best chance to live, because we went from having a touch of pneumonia to all of the sudden, they came back in the room and were like, we're going to have to intubate. And so, of course, you have to give the person's permission for that. And like you said, you were not conscious, so you couldn't give consent for that. And I think in those moments, like when I was being asked those questions, my first thing was, does this give him the best shot at survival? Mm-hmm. And then when it's yes, when it's medically yes, they say yes, but then they have to give you all the risk. But then the other side of that is there's no coming back. And so I think what gave me to be able to make those decisions was it was life or death. And so, of course, I didn't want to see a tube going down your throat. But if that's what was going to help you from not leaving us, then it was a no-brainer. I think the next big decision that I had to make was really, they didn't even ask me, but initially when you left the Huntsville facility that you were at, they wanted to life flight you to Birmingham. But it ended up that it had been a really bad storm, and so they couldn't get a team together, and it wasn't safe to fly. And so initially I had to sign consent for that, or I had to give verbal consent for that. And then it was, okay, but now we're going to transport you by ambulance because it wasn't safe to fly. So when we got to Birmingham, I remember they told us to just wait in the waiting room. And we already knew that your heart was in trouble. We knew your lungs were in trouble. But then it just became this like one thing after another where it was, okay, we want to prevent his kidneys. This number is a little bit elevated, but we want to prevent this from happening. So can you come and sign this? And so it was like a nurse practitioner that came. Then a little bit later, a kidney doctor came and was like, well, he's in complete kidney failure at this point. We need you to sign to be able to put him on complete dialysis. And they had this little iPad. And so like stuff just kept happening. And every time the door would open and somebody would come out with an iPad, I knew like that was my signal. My brain was saying, okay, like sit down, brace yourself to be able to say yes as fast as you can and sign your name as fast as you can, because I knew that was in the way of them doing what they needed to be able to do. So
you had the choice of telling me basically yes or no.
Yeah, and honestly, in those moments, that's something that we had talked about.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you're okay with me sharing that, or we can cut this if not. But, one of your biggest fears has always been having to be intubated.
Yeah.
And so you would jokingly be like, if it ever comes to that, don't just let me go. I don't want any da-da-da-da. And I would always say, stop saying that.
Yeah.
Like, we hope that never happens. But if something like that happened, we're going to do whatever it takes. And it just was crazy that we were in that moment, because sometimes your mind tries to play with you on, wait, is this what he wants?
Yeah.
Like, y'all were kind of joking, but was he serious? Like, did he kind of know that this was going to happen and he didn't want to? But I had to stand on the fact that I knew that sickness is not of God, and a premature death and dying in this manner, I did not believe was going to be the end of your story. And so praying that the doctors would have wisdom for every invention that had been created by man to pull you back.
And see, I think that's important that was good for me to hear, but I think it's important for people to hear too as well, because it wasn't that the doctors were coming in and saying, hey, we're going to do this. We're just letting you know, sign here because we're doing it. It's more so you have the choice in that. And I'm thankful that you made the right decisions, even though I know it was probably tough to make those decisions. And not tough in a way where it's like, well, do I want my husband dead or not? But more so like in that moment, there's a lot of emotions that's happening. This stuff is happening in real time, and those decisions have to be made pretty quickly because my life was on the line. And I remember telling you that, like, prior to this, the closest I got to a ventilator, I remember I had got sick one time and I was on the BiPAP or whatever, and that was like maybe like a day or something. It wasn't even anything extended, like a day for a few hours. And I remember telling you that, like, hey, look, if I ever get really sick, ventilator, cancel it. Let me go. Let me go be with the Lord. Just let me. Don't fight it. And I said that joking, but I really meant it, because it was a great fear of mine. And my fear was the part where I felt like I would be just like torturing myself and torturing others, because in my mind I'm like, hey, this machine is breathing for me. I'm telling myself that I'm basically dead, and I wouldn't want to hang you and others in like this limbo of coming in every day and knowing that there's people who both did not survive the ventilator, but also some that did. I just didn't want to go through that fight and didn't feel like I had the strength to go through it. So I meant it, but I'm glad and thankful that beyond that conversation that you and I had, that you made the decision to say, I don't feel like this is the end, and I'm going to do the right thing and making that decision. And then, so then from there, you've had to play like dual roles. You've had to be a spouse, but then also at some point you had to turn into a caregiver. And I want to know, like, at what point did that switch kind of flip from not just doing one thing, but now realizing that this is an ongoing journey? And yes, I got to be your spouse, but I also now have turned into a caregiver. Can you remember, like, was there a certain moment when that happened? Like, something significant did it happen, or was it not anything significant? It's just something that you kind of went into?
I think you just kind of go into that mode. Like when you're, you know, going through something like we are going through, like every day presents its own set of challenges or whatever. So I think when we were still at UAB, the caretaking was at the very beginning was, okay, I need to make sure that I take care of what's in my control. And really the only thing that was in my control at that point was your atmosphere. Mm-hmm. And so that is why, you know, the worship music, the playing, the encouraging messages and the sermons and the scriptures being read, and like really that's the only thing I could do, because the machines, the nurses, there was a nurse probably every 15 minutes changing out the dialysis bag, coming in and checking vitals, coming in. And so they were, you know, you weren't eating. So like there wasn't anything that physically I could do for you. I would, you know, massage your hands and your feet, because at that point they were that bright red from those pressors doing their job. But that is when I felt like I had to, because, you know, in our relationship, like we've known each other since middle school. And so, you know, you've always been that person, and I'm getting emotional. I don't know. But you've always been that person in our household. And so, you know, just seeing somebody that you care about so deeply, just laying there helpless, so much feels out of your control. But I remember a few days in, I decided that what was in my control, I was going to take care of, and that meant guarding your atmosphere. And so, you know, I'm not very much so an outspoken person, but, you know, sometimes even the nurses, some of them would come in and be not speaking negatively, but just speaking about what is happening. And I would ask, can we step out of the room? And, you know, like just things like that. And so then as you started progressing, you know, the things like helping you sit up on the side of the bed, you know, your mom and I cut up your food, like washing your hair, helping you, you know, those kinds of things, I guess, shifted into the actual caretaking mode. But I think that really starts at the very beginning, because you go into a mindset of, this person cannot do this for themselves. So it is my responsibility, it's my role to make sure that not only physically, I felt like physically you were getting the best care possible, but I was more concerned about you mentally and spiritually at the very beginning.
And I think too, like, you know, the protecting the atmosphere, like, now makes me even more appreciative of you being able to do that, because sometimes, you know, when you're in the hospital and you're sick and you're recovering, you know, you have people that want to come see you. You got doctors and nurses saying different things. And I feel like that room is kind of like, you know, kind of like the scripture kind of did some teaching on, where the ruler's daughter was they thought she was dead.
Well, she was dead.
She was dead. And when Jesus comes into this room, like, who was in there really mattered, you know, and how you could be in a situation, in a room, having what you think is a casual conversation, but what you say is going into the atmosphere, and it is has the potential of controlling a certain environment.
And then, you know, there wasn't any if people could come in and out.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
like that, it had to remain a sterile environment.
Yeah.
And so for the first several days, it was just you and I. And then, you know, your parents, myself, and your brother, like, were the only people who were allowed to come in because of just safety.
Yeah.
And, you know, they continue to remind us that the smallest germ, you know,
Yeah.
the smallest little thing
Yeah.
could set us back so far. So really for the first, I don't even want to put a timestamp because all of this feels like it was yesterday, but it also feels like it happened like 10 years ago. But, you know, the part about people, like we really couldn't have,
Yeah.
you know, anyone in the midst of the space. But even with us, we were very cognizant of the conversations we were having, the things that we were saying. Like, you know, even I remember asking one of your favorite nurses that you had, I was like, can I put my earbuds in his ear? And so we were like talking about like, can they hear? And like some research says people can hear, some people says that they can't. And he was like, but you know, I mean, I feel like if he's that 1% that can, why not? And so everybody knew that was around that when you come in this room, like we're being intentional about how it feels in here. Because the hospital can be a very depressing place, and all you're hearing is beeping and chiming and people rushing in and rushing out, and then the smell, it just smells like a hospital. But I think that part of that was probably phase one of being a caretaker, was getting comfortable enough to get out of my comfort zone to try to take care of the atmosphere.
And I know that wasn't even like it wasn't a pretty sight.
No.
Because, you know, you got tubes probably running everywhere, in and out of my body, machines everywhere, like you said, beeping, medicine, blood, you know, running everywhere in different places. But being able to move past like what it actually looked like and still be able to really give, like, be that spouse and caregiver. And I remember, you know, you and my mom had to, you know, do everything from cutting up my food. It's things I look at now that I look back on when I feel like in moments where I feel like I get a little low just because my recovery time is still like it's a process. And I still feel like at times where I'm like, man, my mind is telling me physically I can get up, I can walk, I can do these things. But then my body is like telling me that it's telling me that I can't. And then I get in those moments where like sometimes I just feel low and I start thinking back on little things like that where, you know, in the hospital at UAB, like my thing was I was eating turkey burgers like it was crazy. Like
Dry turkey burgers.
dry turkey burgers. Like, and I couldn't physically, which is crazy to think back on it now. At a time, I couldn't physically pick up that burger. And we're not talking like anything massive. We're talking like a standard, literally a standard turkey burger. And I couldn't physically pick it up. And I remember like you having to cut up all my food like a baby almost, and then feed it to me.
And I remember you being like, you know, ready to be able to do that for yourself and kind of feeling defeated. And then, but we had to think back on like, okay, but a couple weeks before that, you were on a feeding tube.
Yeah.
And that doesn't diminish the fact that, man, that stinks that I can't even cut up my food. But I also think it's good to have somebody, like I hope that people who are going through have someone to partner with them. Because sometimes when you're in those moments and you feel like, man, where I am is not where I want to be, having that person alongside you to say, but remember though, remember when it was a feeding tube, you know, remember when it was just IV liquid that was going in you. And so we've come a very, very, very long way.
I mean, I remember those feeding tube days. Jesus.
And that's when you can even remember it, because the phase before that, you were here physically,
Yeah.
but mentally you were out of it. And so it's definitely been a journey.
And then to go from like, you got food being chopped up, and then I remember like even with my hands now, like as my hands were recovering and still recovering, like a lot of stuff I just couldn't do. Like they had water bottles. I couldn't open water bottles. Every now and then they would have like ketchup and mayonnaise for my turkey burgers, and not even being able to open up those little packages, and little things like that. And I remember, like I knew at UAB you had hit the ultimate caregiver status and award, if there was one, because you started. It was more like above and beyond, like washing my hair up there, and then because of the medication that I was on, and how long I had been up there, naturally, my skin was drying out severely, and because there's no mirror for me, I can't tell these things and see these things. My facial hair grew in pretty aggressively, and I remember the day you were like, "Hey, I think we probably need to do this facial mask," and I'm like, at that point, I've never done a facial in my life, like, just never have, and never volunteered, never wanted to volunteer. Just, hey, that's you, that's not me, type thing. But I remember when you said it, something like was like, don't fight this. Like, at first I was like, I don't know about that. I don't think I really need it. Then you circle back and I actually agreed to it. And I know you probably remember that.
I do remember it, because it was not that I just wanted to give you a facial. It was that your skin was literally like, and I'm always jealous of your skin. Like I have the smoothest baby skin, and it was like the dry patches on you. I was like, I don't want him to get an infection from whatever, just because they would come in and they would give you like their version of a bath, which is like a wipe down. But like they're not washing your hair. They're not like, putting any type of anything other than just wiping you down.
Yeah.
And I remember you had like these huge splotches all in your hair, and then it was coming down to your face. And I was like, this is in my control. And so yes, we did. And it was funny because you initially said no. And then you were like, well, I guess so. I guess I probably do need to do something with my face. And then I was like, I'll do it really, really quick.
Yeah.
And then the doctor came in and you had it on
I had it on my face.
And you told him, and he was like, no, that's a good wife to do that or whatever. I was like, I was supposed to have it off before you got in here. But yeah, just even just little stuff like that. You just want the person to feel like, because I know how I felt. Like there, were days where, you sleep in the hospital room, you have on the same clothes for several days. Like, how you feel physically when you can refresh and, feel good. And again, anything within our control, we were trying to do to make it feel a little bit better, even though so much of it was out of our control.
And I remember the doctor came in. And so to paint this picture, I got like this facial mask.
It was just like a hydration mask with
It was
the
a
eyes
facial
in the
mask.
mask, and it was just for moisture. It wasn't a clay mask or anything like that.
It felt like a full-on mask.
It was just to try to help some of those
from
dry
here
splotches.
to here.
It did.
And
did it feel good though? Don't lie. Did it feel good?
We can cut this out. But for the record, it did feel pretty good.
Okay, then.
It did feel pretty good. Like, I'm going to be honest, it felt pretty good.
Your skin was crying out to me.
Like, when she took it off, the mask off and everything, I can't lie. Like, I was almost like, hey, we can do this again. Like, we can run this back. But the doctor comes in and, they're checking you out. And at first he didn't say anything. But he was looking at me. And when he was looking, he was doing that heavy, hard blink, like what is this? Like I know what he knew what it was, but he just wasn't saying something. And then I just kind of told him, I said, "Hey, look, this is our little secret, okay?" And then he laughs. We make a joke about it, but those little moments, I would say, emotionally helped me. Physically, it did its job, but emotionally, it helped me because it was at that moment where I'm like, man, this woman really cares about me. One, to make some tough decisions to save my life, but two, to stick it out with me every step of the way.
Well, and you keep saying that. Like, I don't know what, like, do people not stick it out with other people? Like, I don't know.
I would say no.
I mean, I just feel like.
I mean, you even think about this. If a person's life is in a yes or no,
Yes.
for a spouse, and knowing that the spouse is in a place where they're not conscious, and it's not like the nurse or doctors can say, "Hey, yeah, she said this, but what do you think?" I would say comfortably, I would say that there's some people who made some life decisions like that the opposite direction. I'm not saying I got it on record. I'm just saying I would assume that happened. But then when you're talking about being in the hospital that extended period of time, you know, I would say some people probably like, "Hey, look, just give me an update," you know.
And I think that was the biggest turmoil that I went through, because I felt that I needed to be there physically in the space with you, but we have 2 children.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I don't remember what day, what number day that I ended up coming back home, but I know for a very, very long time we were just sticking it out. Mm-hmm. And I felt that, I remember my mom told me that, you know, you have people here that love you all and that love your children. You need to be there. And that freed me from, I don't want to say all of the guilt, but it helped me to say to myself, like, this is important. I need to be here. This is my place. I'm not shortchanging our kids by not being with them every single night. You know, we are here as a family fighting with you.
Yeah.
But they're, other than our kids and feeling the guilt of, you know, man, like, you know, it's their summer break, and you know, and then trying to like process, like, for several weeks, like, they couldn't talk to you. And so I remember our son constantly asking, because we would say, like, you're taking a nap to get stronger. That's the verbiage we were using with him and Daddy. And he's like, another nap? Like, you know, why can't he? And I would say, well, you can talk to Daddy, but he's taking a nap right now, or has a special breathing machine on to help him. He can't talk back, but he can hear you. And he would be like, why is he nobody needs that many naps. So, you know him. And I just felt that it was better for me to be there and to be able to get the daily updates, to be able to ask questions. You know, we were talking about earlier a situation with a particular shift where they had missed a dose of medication and you had a fever, and to be able to, okay, recall that, no, like, the medication you're about to give him, actually he had an adverse reaction to that. Can you go back and look at the chart? Like, I feel like that's those things that, like, that's a spouse's place, you know, to be there if you are able to. And thankfully, I was able to.
Yeah.
You know.
And I think that to me that meant a lot, because a lot I could not do alone. And, you know, really, the other thing too is dealing with the major life adjustments that we've had to make during this whole process, and what that's been like. That's where I want us to deal with next is, you know, this has been a lot. So even coming from UAB, coming from the physical and occupational therapy facility, and then back home for a few weeks now, it's been like a major life adjustment of now, you know, having to, like, anytime that we leave home, mapping that out, what that looks like, having to map out even coming home, what does that look like as far as moving around our house, me getting dressed, ironing clothes, washing clothes, and then even trying to feed myself, like that looks like. But the biggest thing too is we have now these devices that we have to carry around, like the wheelchair, uh, the walker, and things like that. Uh, how has that been from your end? Is that, I know physically it's challenging because lifting up a wheelchair and putting it in uh, an SUV can be challenging,
It is.
in itself. Uh, but like those life changes that we've had to make adjustments.
I think there have been a lot, but I keep trying to go back to like every single time that I sat and cried myself to sleep. I'm like, I'll lift this wheelchair up 1,000 times if I have to. Yeah. And I'm human, so there are times that I get frustrated. I know we had an appointment out of town, and I could not get like, you have to take the legs off of it, and then you got to pop it up. And the lady told me, like, don't keep your feet in the middle. And like every time I do it, and I squeeze my feet, and I'm like, she told me not to do that, and I keep doing it. And or the fact that once we get all the equipment into the car, there's not any room for anything else, and so the kids are like complaining because they're used to having this and that in the car. And so like we have our moments, like it is a huge adjustment, but I try not to stay in that space because I remember when I was just praying for us to have another chance of going somewhere as a family, of you being able to walk out with us. But it has been definitely a change. You don't realize how much of a partnership you're in life when you've created a life and everybody has their role. And then when that person can't do that any longer, you feel bad on either side because, like the kids, they're complaining because they have to get up super early for school now because you were the person who was taking them to school. And so I would leave by 7 a.m., but they would just now be getting up. And so now they're getting up, 2 hours earlier so they can leave out with me. And that is a major adjustment for them in their life. But even though they can't communicate it, I know they wouldn't trade that for still having to drive an hour and a half to see you and only stay in 30 minutes. Or even when you were at the rehab facility, Saturday mornings, we were up at 7, we were loading the car, we were getting there before your physical therapy started so we could be on the front end of that because you would be so tired after it. Like, all of those things are just a part of the journey. And so, with you coming home, I think my biggest thing now is trying to make sure that you feel independent enough without setting yourself back. And so, little things like, we have to get your clothes out at night so that, I can help you iron them and find them and that kind of thing. You don't realize how much of everybody had their own little things that they were doing until now, we're all having to kind of rely on each other. And I feel like every week you're able to do more and more, and not need as much and not require as much assistance. But again, I don't want to sound like it's all perfect and easy because it's definitely not, but I just think it's worth it.
Yeah.
Like, that's fine if we need to have less in the car. That's fine if, we need to install cameras so we can make sure that even when nobody's here with you, we know that you're okay, and, things like that. Like, I think the next big thing, we're going to look at some changes in the bathroom and things like that. But you just do what you have to do.
Yeah.
You just do what you have to do.
We've been, it's been that way for us. And like you said, it honestly, it has not been easy. Like we can't sit here and act like, like, oh, we're good. I'm still homebound right now, which means that really outside of church on Sunday, like I was telling, outdoor stuff. I was telling someone the other day, like, Sundays are adventures for me. Like, I'm excited about Sundays. One, because we get to go to church and I get to teach the gospel and I get to see humans, you know, like other humans. And even though we don't interact as far as, close proximity because of health reasons, but being out the house, being able to get in the car in the passenger seat, ride, look around at the city, and then get into a building with other people outside of like a doctor's appointment, which is a few times a week, that can be extended. But then I've also been enjoying lately being able to go to our son's T-ball scrimmages and practice. And I'm so thankful for even that because I remember we signed him up for it. Was I still?
Right before, I believe.
I left UAB, I
Yeah.
think. I was still at the tail end of UAB. We were talking about it. We were looking. And I remember saying, let's go ahead and sign him up. And in my mind, I was like, hey, look, hopefully I'll be able to at least be well enough to attend his first game or something like that. And I remember he's had a few practices that I missed. And I remember going to his first practice and just being out the house for that was a lot on me emotionally, because I'm like, one, I hadn't been outside like that.
And I did not know if you were ready for that heat.
And
For 2
that's the
hours.
other thing, like the heat. Then it's like, it's so much that we had to like manage.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
man, these kidneys are awake and they will hit me at any given moment. So what is using the bathroom looking like out there?
And just even the route.
The route,
because,
yeah.
like, I think that's something that escapes you if you don't have somebody who is handicapped in your life, where, you park and you try to get the closest parking spot just so you don't have to walk far. But, like, for us, that means, okay, I need to get there 30 minutes early so that I can unload the equipment, but also I need to be able to visualize a route.
Yep.
And so at his practices, one side of the facility are the cages, and then we might be practicing on a field at the
Yeah.
other side. So for that particular one, it meant getting us to cages, wheeling you to the field, and then me getting in the car and pulling it closer.
Yep.
So that when it was time to go, we would be able to unload the equipment and, get you in and that kind of stuff. Like, I think those are those real changes that are like behind the scenes that.
And wondering if things are wheelchair accessible.
Right.
And like, these are things that before we didn't have to think about.
Right.
You just get up, you park, you walk.
Right.
Or handicap accessible. Bathrooms handicap accessible. It's like, worst situation to be in is having to go use the bathroom and the wheelchair can't fit. And that's like,
Or even just, you're getting more independent, but like being able to, because I keep thinking like, okay, if you had to go out there, I hope this is not too graphic, but like you being able to go to the bathroom by yourself, like,
yeah.
like, so it's just, it opens your eyes to like another set of things that people are dealing with.
Yeah.
That because you've never walked down that path, you just didn't even realize that those are things.
And you learn not to take for granted
Right.
those things. And so it's been adjustment. I'm excited that I get those two activities outside of doctor's appointments.
And he's very excited about you being there.
And it like experiencing that and being truly, really for me is being alive to witness that, and not for our children to just have memories of me means so much. And but I'm thankful for the journey. I'm thankful for you as a spouse and you as a caregiver, and thankful for that I don't have to go through this by myself. That, from you to my parents coming and being here with me, your parents, like all of these things, the community of people who have surrounded me during this, to say that, hey, look, we're here for you. If you need anything, let us know. There's times where I have to get out of myself and be willing to say, hey, no, I really need help with this. Like, I physically can't do this. I really need help, and that has been a journey in itself because you get so used to just, doing things like, it bothers me that a light bulb is out, and I normally would get my ladder and boom,
Tell me what light bulb
it's
it
fixed,
It's fixed.
and so like little things even around the house, like even like driving, I not being able to drive.
Now that is an ironic thing because he doesn't think I can drive. And so like now that he has to ride with me 100% of the time, it is very ironic. And I have not gotten one ticket. I have not hit anything. I'm a normal driver.
I was afraid of your highway driving.
And we've gone up and down the highway a
Definitely
billion
local,
times.
definitely local driving, but highway driving for sure. And I knew I had got to a comfortable place with you.
Oh, you were knocked out.
Oh,
you
yeah,
didn't seem too worried.
for sure. Like I knew we were at a comfortable place when I had my first appointment in Birmingham, and I remember letting that passenger seat back.
The first 3 minutes of the ride.
And closing my eyes, and I had the greatest peace. Like I wasn't concerned. I was like, Lord, you're gonna keep her awake, and I'm gonna take this nap.
Because remember, that was like ride 85 for me. Because I had been driving that same route for 2 months straight, going back and forth. I would come home on Friday or Saturday, speak at church on Sunday, and load right back up on Sunday evening and come right back.
Yeah.
And so Birmingham ain't nothing but a thing now. Like it's not a big, it's just, hey, it's right down the street.
And I would catch a nap in that passenger seat.
And just leave me.
I mean, listen, I'll go.
But in all seriousness, I do want to touch on, before we wrap up, I think it is important for the caretaker, and this is an area that I'm trying to grow in, to also take care of themselves. And I don't mean that from a standpoint of it's about me and I need to but I also firmly believe that I'm learning in this journey, you cannot pour from an empty cup. And even if your cup is halfway full and you're trying to pour from it, you're not really giving out anything of any benefit. And so there are small things like when we get to church, I remember my mom had pulled up beside us, and my dad is also on a walker right now from an accident. And she was like, well, let me take it out. And I was like, no, I got it. And she like put her hand on me and she said, when people are here to help you, let them help you.
Yeah.
And that was really good for me to hear, because it was one of those moments where I realized that I had to stop feeling like, because as a caregiver, you're wanting to, make sure that within your control, the person is as comfortable, they have what they need, all of those things. And if you're not careful, you can push out who God is trying to send to help take care of you. And so I just want to make sure that people who are in the role of a caretaker know that it is something where you have to die to yourself, but don't be ignorant to the fact that you can get worn out, A, if you try to do it in your own strength, and B, you do have to have moments where you tell yourself, like, whatever the case may be, whatever you have to do to say, like, at this moment, this person says that they can take you to this appointment. I think, we've started kind of dipping our toe in the whole, like, okay, it doesn't just have to be us on every single thing. I would love for it to be, but the reality is I'm back at work full time. And so knowing that it's okay to accept help, I think is very important for caretakers, because you will run out of gas if you do not take care of yourself as well. And just trusting God, because there's many nights where I lay down and I'm like, I'm very tired. Like I'm physically beat, I'm mentally beat, and half the stuff that I need to do has not even been done. Or either I wake up in the morning and I'm like, how am I waking up tired? Reminding yourself that you are not doing this in your own strength, and that God, the same faith that I had in you to raise my husband out of the bed, I'm going to have that same faith that you will renew my strength, that you will give me patience, all of those things, the same Jesus.
Yeah.
I'm trusting that same Jesus to be there for me too. So I don't know, I just feel like I appreciate the honor that you're giving me and the thanks that you're giving me, and know that I would do it again in a heartbeat. But I also want to speak to people who are in the seat that I'm in, and know that you got to pray for yourself, you got to encourage yourself, and you have to rest as well so that you can be there for that person.
And I think this will be a good moment as we end this, if you don't mind just saying a prayer. I believe there may be somebody that could be watching this who's in that caregiver role, and on any side, it could be spouse related, relative related, that feels drained. Because I can imagine that it's a lot. And let's end this with a word of prayer for them, because I can imagine even that role for them can potentially feel a little lonely and feel a little draining on top of the other life issues and life that they have to manage themselves. So I'll let you pray.
All right. Father, we thank you, God, for who you are. God, I thank you that you are all sufficient in every area of our lives. God, one of your names is Jehovah Jireh, the God who provides. But God, you don't only provide, you see and provide. So I speak over each and every person who is in the role of taking care of someone. I speak peace into their minds as they may be trying to figure out what's the best decision. God, I speak wisdom into them. God, I speak rest over them. May they accept your rest. Rest in knowing that they can do all things through Christ who strengthens them. Father, I thank you that you have placed people together on journeys to be there for one another. God, and even though the journey that we're speaking over right now, it may not be a pleasant one. God, we know that you promised to never leave and to never forsake us. So each and every person who is standing beside a loved one who may be ill, God, who may be in a place right now where they can't even encourage themselves, I thank you that you empower them through your Holy Spirit to not give up, but to rely solely on you. God, I speak that there will be people who come in contact with them that will speak life and restoration and strength even into their bodies. God, I thank you that you have promised that whatever we face, you've promised to be more than enough, and we accept that. We accept your grace, God, in moments where we feel like we don't have enough. God, we accept your strength when we feel like we want to give up. We accept your peace when we may only be seeing chaos around us. So, Father, I thank you for each and every person who may stumble across this video. God, let it meet them where they are, and not be inspired because we've walked this journey perfectly, but God, that they can be reminded that we serve a perfect God. He does all things well, and he sent his perfect Son just for them. We thank you. We love you, God. There's nothing we can do without you. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. We'll see you all in the next video.